So you've been working on a short story for ages and you're wondering if it's time to submit. In this video, we'll walk through 5 indicators that'll let you know your story is ready to send out into the world. Hi, I'm Megan. I'm a writing coach who loves helping frustrated writers organize their writing process so they can finish their projects and meet their goals. When we don't know how to figure out if our story is ready to submit, a few things can happen. 1, we may spend way too much time revising, or 2, we might actually over-edit our stories and take out things that were perfectly fine. 3, we might actually just let our story sit on the shelf a little too long or never send it in and end up feeling stuck or defeated. So what can we do to avoid that? These 5 indicators are things that I've noticed in my own writing journey and things that I've gleaned from classes I've taken and other writers I've talked to. And they're basically just signposts to let you know that your story is either ready to submit or getting really close. The first indicator that your story may be ready to submit is that you've done at least 5 to 10 drafts. 5 to 10 is kind of a big range, but it really depends on where you started with your story. If you started your story with a really rough draft where you were kind of just brain dumping your ideas onto the page, you might need a few more revisions. But if you started your story with a premise or an outline, you might not need as many. But really, drafting and revising is key. As Hemingway says, the only kind of writing is rewriting. And as we all know, he was pretty successful with the whole short story thing, so... If you don't know where to start with your revisions, leave me a comment below or DM me on Instagram and we can talk through what's getting you stuck and how to move forward. I can also do one-on-one brainstorming and coaching sessions with writers who feel like they just need a little bit more feedback on what to do next. So overall, the first indication that your story might be ready to publish is that you've done multiple drafts. Alright, so the second indicator that your story might be ready to publish is that it has a clear beginning, middle, and end. Basically, does your story do what you want it to do? Does it accomplish what you set out to have it accomplish? Does anything feel missing? Are there transitions that are kind of confusing or not there at all? When you read it, do you get a sense of who your characters are and how they change and grow throughout the story? So for this, you have to really put on your I've never read this story glasses and imagine that it's your first time encountering the characters and the scenes. What stands out to you? Are there gaps? Are there things missing? Do the relationships between your characters make sense? Are the motives for action well established? It can be really hard to put on those glasses and read your story as if you've never read it before, so I really suggest taking at least a week or a little bit of time away from your story. That way the next time you pick it up, it does feel a bit fresher. Or you can elicit the help of other readers, which brings us to indicator number 3. The third indicator that your story is ready to be published is that you've given it to other people, gotten feedback, and implemented their feedback. A few key things here. You really want to send your story to 2 types of people, writers and readers. Now with writers, try to choose writers who've been published before or who have studied writing either in school or maybe on their own, but essentially people that you respect as knowing what the heck they're talking about. It's important to send your work to other writers because they can really hone in on specific ways to change and adjust your writing. So they'll know all about the conventions of writing and storytelling, syntax and flow, and character development, all the wonderful things that go into creating a great story, and they'll be able to pinpoint areas where they're like, I think you might be able to do something different here. What about this? Make sure you ask for suggestions when they come across places that aren't working. Maybe you could go in this direction instead of that direction, or I was expecting your character to do this, and then I was confused that they did that. What if they did this and it led them to do that a little bit later? Suggestions like that are really going to help you polish your story. Alright, aside from sending your story to writers, you want to send them to readers. Now, most of the time writers are also readers, but I'm talking about people who are not writers, but who read a lot. So readers may not be able to give you technical suggestions about things to adjust in your story. They can still offer really good feedback. They can tell you things like, I got really bored at this point in your story, or I had no idea what was happening in this story until paragraph 5, or I don't know when this story takes place or where. So readers can give you really good insight into the big picture, basically. You want your story to be read by everyday, normal readers, so have some normal, everyday readers read your story. And it's all the better to choose people who are familiar with your genre or style. So if you're writing literary fiction, it might not help to give it to someone who only reads commercial fiction or genre fiction. But if you know someone who reads a lot of classics and a lot of literary fiction, that might be a good bet. So indicator number 3 that your story might be ready to publish is that you've gotten feedback from writers and feedback from readers and you've implemented that into your latest drafts. Indicator number 4 is that your story is free from little mistakes. So this basically means you proofread your story, looking for errors in spelling, grammar, punctuation, those kinds of things. Editors will inevitably find something else they want to change in your story. They're never looking at a story expecting it to be 100% flawless. But still, if they're reading the first page and there's a really big spelling error, or there's a couple of them throughout, they're going to be like, okay, this story is going to be more work on my end. And will they want to accept it? I don't know. So make sure you do as much of the work for them as you can by polishing and proofreading your story before you submit it. I wouldn't worry too much about the odd comma tossed in the wrong place here and there, but try to get it as clean as you can. If you need a refresher on grammar and punctuation rules, because we all learned those like 100 years ago, I have some videos coming out on that as well. And if you feel like your story is pretty much ready to go, but you just want one more set of eyes on it, let me know and we can work something out. All right, we made it to indicator number 5. This indicator leans a little bit more on intuition, but basically you just kind of feel it. You know what I'm saying? Indicators 1 through 4 are all there, and you're like, I think it's time. I don't know what else I can do for this. So your story is doing what you want it to do. You're getting feedback from writers and readers who are telling you the same things. You've done multiple drafts. You've proofread it. It feels like it's ready to go. Send it out in the world. You might wonder, well, what if I do all of these things and it still doesn't get published? Unfortunately, that is a part of the world of writing. Sometimes it's just a matter of finding the right places to submit it to. You might submit it to all the big name contests when really it is actually the perfect fit for a really small contest or a small independent press across the country. I would say if you're feeling discouraged, keep submitting, but try not to submit it just broadly to everywhere. Try to submit your story to places where you feel like it would be a really good fit. All right, let's recap. Number 1, you've done multiple drafts. I would say at least 5 to 10. You don't have to hold too religiously to those numbers, but I say if you're getting to the point where you don't know what else to change, it's time for some outside input. Indicator number 2 is that your story has a clear beginning, middle, and an end. Basically, it's doing what you want it to do. The whole story is there and there are no gaps. Indicator number 3 is that you've sent your story to readers and to writers, and you've implemented their feedback in your successive drafts. Indicator number 4 is that you've polished your story by proofreading it, going through it with a fine-tooth comb to fix any spelling, punctuation errors, things like that. And indicator number 5 is that indicators 1 through 4 were present and you just feel like it's time. You've done everything you can and now it's just fear holding you back. What? I didn't say that. So hopefully now you'll have a better sense of when your story might be ready to submit. If you've been thinking through this whole video, okay, I've done that, I'm ready to send it out. Where do I do that? How do I do that? I've made a video on how to submit a short story that you can watch as well. Otherwise, it was so much fun getting to talk to you today about how to get your stories ready for publication. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!